And we are live on the United Public Radio Network, UPRN 107.7 FM New Orleans, and 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast. How cool is that? And we're also being live streamed wherever podcasts live, so we're not hard to find. Our YouTube channel, etc. To all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is Father Shawn's Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Father Shawn Whittington. I'm an ordained Catholic priest with the United States Old Catholic Church. I'm the abbot for the Old Catholic Benedictines of Immaculate Mary, a team member with Society of St. Benedict, and co-founder of GhostBegone.biz. And yeah, I'm that guy on Eli Roth Presents The Legion of Exorcists on Travel Channel, which is currently streaming everywhere if you haven't caught it yet. So, on that note, if there's anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz, and you'll find a lot of cool things there to see if you go to visit. Both my books are there, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, and God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry 2. It's very, very cool. You've got a plethora of options in purchasing the books. They're a little less expensive on Amazon, and they also come available in an audio version. That's awesome. But if you buy them off the website, they leave my office here. I autograph them, and they come to you enclosed in a beautiful house blessing kit. So how cool is that? You never know when one of those are going to come in handy. But the beautiful thing about getting them off of the website is that part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my books off the website goes to support stjude.org and the ASPCA. How cool is that? You get to help some of the neediest children on the planet and the animals too. What else is there? My online course is there. It's a 12-week online college level course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, taught by yours truly. And you can enroll in the course there on the website, or if you'd like more information about the course before making that type of commitment, you can reach out to me and we can talk and see if it's the right course for you. All my students who graduate the course get a stunning diploma, certificate of completion suited for framing, along with some other very special blessed items that you can only get from yours truly. There's also a place on the website where you can make an appointment to speak with me about your spiritual issues. But the most important thing, brothers and sisters, nobody knows better than yours truly how tough things are out there. But if you're visiting the website and you notice the donate button and you're able to do so, click on it and send my ministry in a small donation. I promise you, it'll be appreciated from the bottom of our hearts. And trust me, we'll put it to good use. So that's my song and dance. Today's a very special day. It happens once a month. It is called First Fridays with Father Shawn and Annette. And you all are the guests. We're going to be taking questions from the live chat room, and I'm going to be buried in the mailbag, buried in the prayer urn, talking about anything you guys want to talk about. Annette always has things she'd like to ask me, and vice versa. And we're just going to have fun today. So, without further ado, I've known her a long time. I love her. I respect her. She's super cool. A lifelong paranormal experiencer in her own right. She's the owner of Stellium Books. She's my publisher. So, if you're thinking about writing a book, reach out to her. Please give a big, warm paranormal ministry family welcome to my co host, Annette Munich.
Hi, Father Shawn. Hi, everybody. Hello, New Orleans. Very glad to be here. Excited, to do another one of our open mics. These always become very, very interesting. And we have people filling up in the chat room. Some of our familiar faces are here, so we will be taking some questions. But before we get started with that, I would be really interested, and I think the audience would also be interested in hearing about your retreat and also becoming ordained an abbot. Recent
Well, let me.
developments. That's where he was last Friday. Recent developments.
Well, let me start by saying happy May Day, one day late. Did you have a happy May Day and did you find a maypole to dance around?
Uh, kind of forgot about all that, but it
How
was
about it was also National Day of Prayer yesterday? Did you say your prayers before you went to bed?
every day.
I knew that you did. Well, very cool. Yeah, I was. We played a replay last week, which was a very popular replay. I think our numbers came in at about 127,000 plus
Oh,
live
nice.
listeners, and that doesn't count the people that come in. They can't listen live, and they come in later and
Right.
check out the archive. So that was wonderful. A very heartfelt thank you to all of you that tuned in for a you and Michelle DeRoche picked a really great replay from early on when we started doing this
That
show. So that
was
was a big hit.
that was Morgan Nuts, and I picked that myself.
Good for
And
you.
she said, kind of, pardon me. She said, kind of go back, a little bit far into last year and choose something that hasn't been recent and maybe people missed it, didn't see it. And Morgan Knudsen came on. That was another time you were gone for being sick. And she's on Travel Channel, well, Discovery now because they moved a lot of the shows over to Discovery. Haunted Hospitals, Paranormal 911. And she does a podcast. So I invited her co-host on, and he's an author, and his name's Michael Brown. And it was a really good discussion, a really nice discussion. So
Very,
um,
very cool.
I'm glad that people tuned in for it because I thought there was a lot there.
Excellent. I've seen that episode. It's wonderful. You did a great job. Thank you for filling in for me that
Thanks.
Friday. And you're welcome anytime I have something to do or I'm sick or whatever the case may be. If I can't be here, you're more than welcome to
And
um
I had my own show, and I'm not really afraid to do it, but I never had to be my own sound person. I never had to do the controls. All I had to do was show up and talk. So even though I got shown how to do it last August, um, I feel like I might need someone to sit with me.
I can do that with you sometime.
Okay.
Otherwise than that, yeah, the retreat. Let me start by saying I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to, and you all know who you are. Most of you have already reached out to personally, but I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all of the United States Old Catholic Church parishioners and supporters that supported the retreat and sent in lots of donations and helped us make it happen because it was dicey. It's not cheap to put on these retreats.
Right.
Everybody has to travel in from, you know, different corners of the United States and so forth. But and the place, Todd Hall Retreat Center in Columbia, Illinois, beautiful place. It's not cheap to rent that place for 4 days. But we made it happen, and it's due solely to our loyal parishioners that all came through with a lot of donations. So a heartfelt thank you to all of everybody that's did did anything to help support us and make sure that retreat went off. It was like it always is. It's my second year there in a row. The year before that, we were in Indiana when I became an ordained deacon, and we were also there for Reverend Mother's um, wedding. So that was a wonderful experience. But Todd Halls, you're in God's country. I mean, you hear people throw that out all the time, but really you are out there in the country. And I
Yeah.
don't, that I live here in Las Vegas. We don't have country out here. So it's you're definitely in God's country. It was a wonderful experience. A lot of special people showed up for this retreat because we were ordaining our current, at that time, Abbot Father Tommy to the presbyterate, becoming a bishop, and also ordaining Reverend Mother to the presbyterate, ordaining her to become a bishop. So we had three other bishops fly in to help Bishop Long ordain them. So that was a very emotional, moving, and type of ceremony that very people are privileged to not only see, which I got to see, but I also got to assist in that. So that was excellent. Now, becoming an abbot, that was, and I'll try not to get emotional, so we'll just quickly just say that that was a once in a lifetime, extremely moving uh, experience. I don't know what else to say. It was definitely, and then just when you get through all of that, and some of these, I did break down in front of everybody a couple of times in a couple of these ceremonies because it's just so powerful and moving, and I soak all of that in. I feel that off of everybody, and I soak it all in. But like this cross was a gift from Reverend Mother after she was ordained to the presbyterate as a gift for me becoming the new spiritual leader and abbot of our Benedictine community. And it's solid ivory and sterling silver, made in the early 1800s in Belgium. It's got all kinds of engravings on the back, and it was in her possession, but since it was originally made, I understand it was passed on from bishop to bishop, bishop to priest, priest to abbot, and so forth, on and on and on. So to have it now in my possession, it's just very. And she gave that to me right before I left, so she's. Uh, I can accuse her again of being guilty of making me cry again before I left the retreat, but it was just a very special thing. So I want to throw this out there. If there's just one person out there that what I'm about to say resonates with, then I've done my job. If you've ever thought about, if you feel like you're being called to the seminary, go to our website, usocc.org. You can click on vocations, and you can also click on the tag that says more and read about our Benedictine community. You don't have to be Catholic to be a Benedictine, you just have to be Christian. Believe in God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Family, all of that good stuff. And so we are taking applications for Benedictines, and we're also taking the applications for our seminary. It's St. Mary's Seminary. And listen, I entered the seminary at age 60, and I'm a terrible student. Having said that, I did have to retire to do that, and I did channel something. And I basically lived in my office 24/7, and I was able to knock out about 6 years of seminary studies in about 2.5 years. But I had help. Um, but it can be done. So it doesn't. You're not never too old. And the great thing about the United States Old Catholic Church is our priests can be married, and we also ordain women. So if you've ever thought about entering the seminary or becoming a Benedictine, look into that. That's usocc.org. And and I think that's all I have to say on that matter.
Very interesting story. So, other than that, USOCC is pretty much just like Catholic.
Yes, it's the United States Old Catholic Church. So yes, we are Catholic. We're the same as the Romans, except for we're not under Rome's jurisdiction. Simply because now listen, God knows that I love, respect, love, and respect the Pope. In fact, I've been glued to EWTN since Pope Francis died, waiting to see that black smoke turn into the white smoke, see who the next Pope is. But they believe the Pope is the head of their church and that the Pope is infallible. Old Catholics, we recognize God as being the head of our church. Like I said, we love and respect the Pope, but we recognize him as just being a man, therefore he's fallible. So that's the main difference, but we are sacramental, so we have baptism, confirmation, confession, mass, communion, all of that. And so we are recognized by the Roman Catholic Church as being validly Catholic because of our apostolic succession, which not every Catholic jurisdiction has. It's very important. That's the laying on of hands for ordination that dates back to Pentecost, when Jesus appeared to all of the disciples in spirit, in the Holy Spirit form, and entered them and told them, this is how you will pass on the Holy Spirit from this point on to other priests and bishops, and that is the laying on of hands. And that's all registered and documented with a company called the Order of Corporate Reunion. If you don't know what that is, you can look that up. That's a worldwide recognized organization that's been tracking that and keeping tight records of apostolic succession since back in St. Peter's time. Bishop Long, his paperwork, he's got like 170 plus paper documentation of his apostolic succession going all the way back to St. Peter, and now I'm on that paperwork. So that's very, very special. And so
I
that's
thought
the
that
big.
was good to ask so that people, I mean, I thought maybe that would be something other people might be curious about. And also something to bring up because Pope Francis just died. So now, we're praying for a really good person to be elected into the
Absolutely.
papacy. And
Absolutely.
so that's really important.
Yes, it is. So, yeah, so in order to enter the seminary for USOCC, St. Mary's Seminary, you have to be Catholic. But you don't have to be Catholic to become a Benedictine. You just have to be, there's people out there that have a very healthy, close relationship with God, and they feel a calling that they want to make that relationship just closer. They don't know how to make it closer, but they feel a calling to want to have a much closer relationship with God. And that's the Benedictine community might just be what the Holy Spirit is ordering for you. So it'd be worth, if you're one of those people that feel that, if my words are resonating with you, you can read up about the Old Catholic Benedictines of Immaculate Mary and see if that might be for you. Now listen, hey, we don't live in a monastery anymore like back in the day. My advice would be read about Saint Benedict, and that might just push you over the edge because he's a very interesting saint. He recognized and evil in the church at that time, and they tried, because he was calling it out, because there was a lot of evil in the church. Even today there is. He was calling it out back then, and his own monks tried to poison him, and it that didn't go well for them. So he's a very interesting character. He's the also the unofficial saint, patron saint of exorcists, and he also is credited with being the father of monastery life. But of course, we don't. There are still monasteries out there, but my jurisdiction, the Old Catholic Benedictines of Immaculate Mary, we don't live in a monastery any longer, but we follow the divine office and the liturgy of the hours, and we attend night prayer every night, and um, just a lot of the habits are awesome. All black habits with a beautiful hooded black scapular. They're awesome. I don't think it's I'm speaking because I'm partial, but I don't think anybody else's habits are as nice looking as the Benedictine habits. So if you look good in black, there you go. So when am I going to get your application, Annette?
Oh, yeah. It's not that I'm opposed, it's just that I never really thought about it.
You would be surprised how close to living the life of a Benedictine you already are.
Right.
So I'll just throw that at you.
I'm very monkish and I like to bake bread
Yeah.
and I like cappuccino. That's Capuchin monks right there. It's, I don't drink wine anymore, but, you know, the the monastery, I'm not trying to make fun of it. I think it's kind of nice. People are quiet and they make things. They sell in the community. On a little side note, there's a monastery that I bought stuff from that has been making some of their things the same way for hundreds of years, and they're in Florence, Italy, and I bought perfume from them before. It's the same perfume that they were making for Catherine de Medici, and she wore it at her wedding, and I bought that. And they also had, it's really nice, it's citrusy, and I bought a spray that is like a mint water refresher for your face, and they have all kinds of things on their sales page or their website, but they've been making these things for hundreds of years, and really cool. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, there, like I said, there are still monasteries out there, and legit monks that live in monasteries.
Right.
Um, and that's all. It's, the person that's right for, that's life changing, and that's a great life for them.
Can I
Yeah,
tell another monastery story
you may.
since we're talking about monasteries? One of the sweetest stories out there about a monastery in Germany. That's where pretzels were invented, and the monks, when they had um, dough left over, they'd roll it and twist it into the pretzel. It was supposed to signify a hug, and they gave that to hungry children, and that's where pretzels come from.
It's a beautiful story. I think I heard that from you back in the day, and I thought
Yeah,
that was
I
a
like
beautiful
that. It's
story. Yeah,
very, it's a nice story.
excellent, excellent. What else do I want to tell you? I think that's it. This week, knowing that it was going to be First Fridays with Father Shawn and Annette, I just left everything on my desk here. Mail bags full, prayer urns full. I've got all these some topics of some very interesting topics. I've been speaking recently with some leading paranormal authorities in our field. They just call me out of the blue and pick my brain about things, and in turn, I pick their brain about things. And so, some of those notes I've left out here, so we can go anywhere you want to go with
Great.
this conversation today. Do we have any
If we don't
questions
have
in
a
the?
question yet, but I have something to tell you. This is really off the wall. I'm just full of curious little things to say, I guess. But so, I have a good friend, and she's been staying at our house. She came here after she was recovering from having a neck surgery. So we had many nights talking outside, drinking coffee. She told me a werewolf story from that area in Oklahoma that you wrote about in your book. And I was like, what? Wow. Wow. Um, Same sort of vicinity as what you experienced. And I told her about you and well, she knew about you. She watches the show. But I'm talking about you and your experience and how you wrote about it in the book, and because you don't come across that many stories like that, you just don't.
Yeah.
So that's worth bringing up. Another werewolf story from that same area. I would say it's within 50 miles of where yours was.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. And after I get done saying what I'm about to say, it's weird that we have a little message from, I hope I don't butcher your name, Heidi, but Heidi Gohl, Gohl, says, "Good day, Father Sean and Annette. Much love from Boulder, Colorado." I was just talking about Boulder,
I
Colorado
heard.
with a person who had reached out to me about a haunted hotel. So I'll go there in a second. So I think that was meant to be me to see someone from Boulder on there. I just was speaking to this person. But the story that I think you're talking about in book two was actually a possession story, and it took place on an
Right.
Indian reservation. Is that the one?
Yes.
Well, see, when this elderly Native American person, when the unclean spirit manifested in him, he became very lycanthrope like,
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But I have this married couple that I've interviewed several times that told me, and when I talk to them about this story, even today, they'll get pale, they get goosebumpy, and they even start to shake a little bit when they tell the story. They were newlyweds. She had some kids from a previous marriage, then had a child with her new husband, and they were traveling to the Midwest somewhere, possibly Oklahoma. I don't remember. They were traveling from Vegas to the Midwest. They were taking the back roads, and they were on this road. They said the last town they went through was about an hour behind them, and they had about another hour to go to the next town. They're out in the middle of nowhere. It's like a two-lane country road. And they notice about 50 yards ahead of them, like a cow on the side of the road. And they know they better slow down because you don't want to hit a cow. But two, it never fails. Whenever you get, why the animals wait, and this is broad daylight now, right when you get up to these animals, they want to dart across the road. They wait. I don't know what that's all about. So it's almost, if there's not any oncoming traffic coming, it's almost worth to really slow down, get on the other side of the road, and pass slowly, because sure enough, they're going to dart in front of you.
Mhm.
Well, they didn't think nothing of it. They got up to to this animal, and all of a sudden, I want to say close enough to where they could recognize it wasn't a cow. This thing stood up, turned around, and they described it as being a very large, hairy, naked man that had a snout.
Well,
And just like just like what I was just saying, right before they were almost there, it was so frightening that the husband never even let up on the gas. In fact, he floored it a little bit, and sure enough, in like two steps, it darted across the road in front of them and
wow.
off. And they never even discussed it. They just kept driving. It was so frightening to them that they never even discussed it amongst themselves. They got to their destination, spent the weekend or a week or so with family. Then it was time to head home. And late that night, before the morning came when they were going to head home, the wife says to him, I want to talk about what happened to us on the way here because I don't want to go home the same way we came here.
Right.
And they ended up opening up to each other about what happened. And they ended up taking a road back home that took them days off of the course. And they got home many days later than they were supposed to get home just so they wouldn't have to drive home that same route. So, you know, um, I want to lean more. You know what? People talk about the dog man. Definitely not Bigfoot. Bigfoot doesn't have a snout. And Bigfoot is usually doesn't look like a large hairy man. They even said mangy, large naked hairy man who was kind of mangy looking, and he had a snout. The husband, interestingly enough, said he saw an old movie a long time ago called The Island of Dr. Moreau, and he said it looked like those half man, half animal kind of creature thing. Neither one of them ever said werewolf, but the description is very werewolfishy sounding.
Right.
But I think a werewolf would seem more wolf in appearance mixed with man than vice versa. But they distinctively said large, hairy, naked man, mangy in appearance with a snout. That's scary,
Yeah.
especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere. You've got
Right.
three young kids in the back of the car napping. I mean, who knows what could have gone wrong in that
Right.
situation? And that is very frightening.
Right.
And for them to not talk about it then and to wait like a week or so before even talking about it the night before they head home, and then both of them agreeing to decide to completely take a different route home that took them days off of their course. That I legitimately felt these people were being honest with me. And the only reason why they even reached out to me was they continued to have night terrors about it and continued to be very upset about what it was they saw. And they needed to speak with somebody, whether it was me or someone else. They needed to speak with somebody to get to get that off of them. It was like a real monkey on their back, them having this experience and not having shared it. So I felt honored that they shared it with me, and it was listening to them talk to me about it was very frightening.
There's just so many interesting stories and experiences out there, and um, like I say, there's no way to know that every single one of them is accurate and true. I'm very sure that the great preponderance of them are. And um, the world of cryptozoology, that is just all kinds of fascinating. And they're always getting different kinds of reports and accounts. And I would think that would probably count as a crypto, or someone could say that it's a cryptoid. I like you're saying, it seems kind of like werewolfy, but not the way you would think a werewolf is, but then the way Hollywood would portray something like that, is not going to necessarily be anything accurate. But just really interesting about stories like that. And then she was talking about skinwalkers, and we had Jim Segala on from Skinwalker Ranch and all the stories from out there. But, just a lot of really creepy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, they're shapeshifters, things that could look like one thing and then look like another thing. And it's all very, very interesting. Always more questions than answers.
Well, before I forget, I'll real quickly tell you what Boulder, Colorado, in addition to Heidi being here and being from Boulder, what it
Hi,
has to do with
Heidi.
a gentleman. I know people that love the movie The Shining are probably going to get a little upset with me for saying this. First of all, I love the movie, although we know
That's
now,
one of my favorite movies.
yeah, what we know now is that uh, Stephen King didn't like Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of his novel. He swore one day he would do a legitimate remake of his novel, which he did. A lot of people didn't see it, but it was a 3 night miniseries on TV starring Rebecca De Mornay, I believe,
Oh,
and the guy that played the younger brother on Wings, that TV show. I loved that the 3 night miniseries that was done right to the way King made his novel. I loved that. We all know now that King stayed in Boulder, Colorado at the Stanley, I believe it was, but he's the first to admit he never said the stuff did or didn't happen. But he did admit that at the time he was struggling, greatly struggling with substance abuse, alcoholism. He was stuck in this hotel during a blizzard. So who knows? Um, but somebody reached out to me. A lot of people don't know that the outside hotel in that movie was the a different hotel, and the inside of that hotel was also just a couple of shots was another hotel, but most of that was a set, wasn't a real hotel. But the one that's shot on the outside is also very haunted, and that's called, I believe it's Timberland Lodge on Mount Hood. And somebody just stayed there and reached out to me about their experience, and this person is not into that at all, but reached out to me. So I've been having, oddly enough, discussions with a lot of people about um, the connection between haunted hotels and why are hotels so haunted, portals, are they real or are they not? And when you talk about portals, things like mirrors and why many people cover them up when there's a death in the family or a death in the home. So those are some interesting topics. If any of those jump out at you, to finish my Colorado base there, but we do have a question I noticed here, and I believe it's from Camilla.
you want me to pull it up for you? Here you go.
Yeah,
Oh, wait. She had more before that. This was the beginning of it.
a murder of a woman in a submarine. I saw in a flash very clearly in my head. how the woman was killed, and I just knew where the body was. This was 10 days before the police found her. Huh.
And then here's the second part.
Camilla. Hi, Camilla. She says, so my question would be, how come a traumatic event like that is randomly downloaded into my mind? And that is an interesting question because I'll tell you why. We're all psychically connected here on this show, I believe. And that's why the people that tune in and like this show, I think, are in under that umbrella. I believe now this comes back to the portal thing. I'm on the fence with portals. I believe the portals are really our minds. And I believe it all ties into how psychically gifted we are or aren't. Some people that are extremely psychically gifted don't look at it as being a gift at all, and they get upset with me when I say that. I just throw that word out there. But that's what I believe. So, Camilla, and I know Camilla very well, she was one of my students. Camilla, you just happen to be very psychically gifted, and that's why. Um, I think you should continue. That is random for you to get a vision of a woman who died on a submarine, and now you know how she died and where the body is. I the police found it 10 days later, but you knew about the location of that body. I just believe, Camilla, you just happen to be like that mosquito trap hanging on the back porch in the dark, all lit up, and all the mosquitoes, which can either be interpreted as spirit or spirit communication, is just coming at you, and occasionally you lock onto something. Did you get that? I'd be interested to know, Camilla, if you got that vision in a dream or if it was just a flash of a vision you got, a random vision you got while being wide awake. But Camilla, we both know that you're very psychically gifted. So why why that happened to you, I don't know. And I think it's worth you continuing to research that, find out who this woman was, and find out why you may have or not have some types of ties with this woman or with this submarine or I don't know. That's just weird. That's just awfully random. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, do that research, Camilla, and get back to me. I'd be interested to find out. Um,
It's interesting too because I think that, and I always prefer the term that they used to use. They would talk about extrasensory perception, ESP, instead of psychic. And that's what I think a lot of things are. And it can seem pretty random. Some people, they can try to do it. They work on criminal cases and things like that. Other people, they get some random flash or insight out of the blue and don't really know why. Can't try to do it. Can't try to not do it. It doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason, and yet there it is. So I don't know. It's hard to say.
well, psychically gifted people, they may not have any. They never really tried to harness their gift and learn how to work it, turn it on or turn it off. So they're just wide open radio collecting all these signals all the time. So a lot of signals they do get, I think, are totally random, and they don't really they'll never know why they got that particular vision or what the case may be. And it's funny you bring up psychics helping. More and more law enforcement agencies have been working with psychics lately, which I think is awesome. But I know a person, actually, I know two, but one of these people was a crime scene photographer and a person that would take photos of accidents where there was a fatality.
They,
And this person happens to also be extremely psychically gifted. So many of these people, these disembodied spirits, would latch on to them, this person,
sure,
and then follow them home and want to communicate with them. But this person didn't want, this is one of the people that didn't look at this as a gift, more of a curse. And so it got so bad that this person even quit their job that they were trained at doing, that they went to school at and got trained at, a law enforcement person, um, well paying job. They even quit their job to get away from being bombarded by the disembodied spirits all the time that they took photos of. So that's sad that a person
It
couldn't.
is sad, but I could understand that. And I had a friend, it's someone that you know, but she went to classes to further develop her psychic gifts. And it turned her life into a nightmare because she didn't know how to turn it off. And I don't know how to turn it off. I don't know why it happens in the first place. So, this was a person that said that she was taking NyQuil every night so she can go to sleep, wearing one of those eye masks. And then she could even feel things around her and hear them and occasionally touch her when she's trying to go to sleep. And she said that um, she'll probably never marry again because she wouldn't want to wish that on anybody.
Wow.
To never have peace at night. Now,
Back.
things might have changed, but that's the way it was as of a few years ago. So, me, I thought I would never openly walk into something to heighten things and make it more frequent, and then maybe have no control over that and live with definitely one foot in um, another world and one foot in this one.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It's funny. The senses are very funny. And back in the day, when I was just a Ghostbuster, Sharon and I helping people, somehow it just went from us just going to these locations and taking the tour or going on ghost hunts. It went from that into automatically we were just getting a lot of people reaching out to us to want to come in their homes. And it's very different to go and investigate in someone's home than it is to go to the Good Springs Hotel.
Right.
Um, so having said that, back in the day, I used to practice something that they called spirit retrieval. And if I knew that there was a location in the home where the spirit was seen more times than not, or perhaps it was the location in the home where the people that were there knew that something traumatic happened in there, I would tell everybody to leave me alone for a little while. Come check on me in an hour or so if I don't come back out. But I would go in there, shut the door. I would put on those um, things that you would put on when you go to sleep. I had several pairs of those. Put some earplugs in my ears, and I would just sit in a chair or even lay down on a bed and just lay there and wait until I felt that something was really trying to communicate with me. And I would psychically try and connect with the disembodied human spirit that was there and find out what it was they wanted or not. Sometimes the messages that I thought I got totally didn't make sense and didn't help out at all the situation. But sometimes it was pretty miraculous the things that I was told and the messages that I did receive and the feelings that I did get. And it would help to bring closure to a lot of cases. Unfortunately, I don't consider myself a psychic, and it I think it brought trouble. It brought a lot of I think some of the hauntings that Sharon and I experienced here in our home was due to me opening up that can of worms and not being able to help this disembodied spirit and brought on some type of frustration. This spirit would latch on and then follow us home. Even though we would say many times before we left a location, no spirit entities here are allowed to follow us home, sometimes that doesn't work. They don't have to do what you tell them to do. Um, so I stopped doing that. As I got more into my spiritual walk, my religious and spiritual walk in life, I got away from doing that more because it falls under the form of conjuring. And I try not to do that. Whatever happens, happens. Sharon and I go into these cases. And whatever happens, happens. Whatever doesn't happen, doesn't happen. But we try to just, most importantly, not make things worse and try and help the families out. And it's not for everybody. There's many really legitimately talented paranormal teams out there that don't want to investigate in homes, and I get it. And that's very, very cool. Don't. If you don't, if that's not in your if you don't if you're not feeling that, then don't do it, because it is very different, because you can very easily make
Make
things
things
much worse.
worse. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, Here's an interesting little side note. We're getting to quarter till, so maybe I'll keep it short. But I reached out to this couple in France that they bought an old convent. It's huge. It's like three buildings. It's enormous. So
Uh-oh.
I'm looking at this. They're on YouTube. They're called the Pendericks. They're on YouTube and they have a lot of videos and they're painstakingly restoring this convent. I mean, not just, fix it up a little, like refinishing the doors and just beautifully working with the chapel and trying to bring it back to life. And I was showing that to the same friend I was talking about earlier. She asked me, "What are you watching?" And anyway, so I said, "I bet that place is haunted." So then we see a video about how they're hearing all kinds of noises and some of the stuff that they're finding there. And it was interesting because it's mostly centered up in the area where the nuns had they called them cells, which we use that word for jail, but that's what they would say for your private quarters. And I sent them a message. Maybe it's because you're a man and a man wouldn't be allowed up there unless he were like a handyman and it was a daytime. A man wouldn't be allowed up there at night. They hear a lot of doors slamming and stuff like that. So, anyway, long story short, I sent them an email. I invited them to come on the show and talk about the restoration of their huge haunted convent and all the stuff that goes on there. So hopefully we get a positive response. I think that's really interesting, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And you know why they're getting, first of all, a lot of people I talk to are very surprised when they hear just how haunted many churches are, and monasteries and convents and things of that nature. Um, so I find that fascinating, and you know why they're getting, everything's starting to become more supernaturally and paranormally active, because they're doing all of this reworking of the place and
Right,
bringing it back to its, you know, from its past glory back to its, its
right.
new reborn
And
self, which is very, very cool. Yeah, that they would make great guests. I would love to speak with
that's
them.
what I was thinking. So I'm hoping, even though there's a time change, and that might make it difficult for them because it might be kind of late at night. But I think in this case, they're not doing anything to really try to scare and torment them. I think they like that they're restoring everything. There's a real caring behind what they're doing, and they're taking their time. But I think it makes sense of why the shadows and the slamming doors up where the nun's sleeping rooms would be. Laura Lee's here. Hi, Laura Lee. Let me get a little help for Laura Lee.
Hi, Laura Lee. Um, Camilla says, I was standing in my kitchen, not really focusing. I had read an article about the missing woman and the submarine being gone. It was brutal because I knew the body was cut up and in the water. Huh. So yeah, that opened up the can of worms for you, because you're already psychically gifted. You've read that article, and boom, there was the opening right there. That's very interesting. Infinite Three Joy says, I don't have a question, but I just want to say I wish you could organize an event so we could all meet you. That would be awesome. That would be
Father
awesome.
Shawn and I have never even met in person.
I know, doesn't it? Seems funny
And I've
that
known you
you
so
think
long, I
about
can't
that.
even
Yeah.
remember when it was that I met you, but he's been in Vegas all this time. I was in Chicago and now I'm in Oklahoma. I'm a little closer. I made it from Chicago to Oklahoma.
You
Um,
know what's funny? She brings it up. Nobody ever reaches out. I don't know how this whole event thing works. I'll have to reach out to one or two people I know that go to a lot of paranormal events,
I,
paracons,
I
paranormal
used to
conferences.
coordinate events.
Well, nobody ever reaches out to me. People reach out to me all the time and want to know why I'm not at more events. I never really gave it much thought other than I don't know if you have to be
And
invited to them, but nobody
you
ever reaches out to me and invites me. So that's why. But I would imagine if I
you
went to
do
more
get
events,
invited, but you could send an email that you're interested. During COVID, they really went into a sharp decline, of course, obviously, but there are a few that stay pretty strong, and some of them, even if you're not a speaker, you can go and you can get a table. You would have to pay some money, rent your spot and your table. Um, some speak, some don't speak. Some are way bigger than others. They're all different kinds of arrangements. Is that something that you might want to do?
I might, I
I don't
really
know if
might. 'Cause I
they have
think
anything about
everywhere these events are at, there's people in that area that know me, who
it's also
I hear
kind
from all
of
the time.
the bigger speakers. It's kind of difficult because they usually want to have their travel and their hotel covered, so you may or may not get that. It's easier to get an event that's closer to where you live, where they don't feel like they have to put out so much money. They used to have a Paracon in Las Vegas. I don't know if they still do it anymore. We have to look it up.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
then
I was just about to ask Infinite Three Joy where she was at, and she says, "Come to
I
Ireland." Um, it's Sharon and I were just talking about that the other night. We still want for our wedding anniversary, our 25th wedding anniversary, which may or may not happen. We want to organize um, uh, a trip, a group trip to Ireland, England, and Scotland. And on this trip, it's going to be not only very paranormally based and supernaturally based, the locations, but there's going to be thrown in there a lot of religious locations where at one location I can do baptisms, and at one location I can do weddings, and at one location I can perform mass and give communion. So this is going to be a very interesting trip. It's in the works. So Infinite Three Joy, I may be coming to Ireland, but somebody, I probably shouldn't say their name. Person's very wealthy, and I'm turning it down for now because I hate to leave Sharon. It's just the 4 days I left her alone here when I was in at the retreat. Um, I don't like to leave her at home alone for 4 days. Can't afford to get us both there, so it's tough. Um, but this person wants to send me to County Logue in Ireland. I believe it's I don't have the paperwork in front of me. It's County Logue, and there's an island there, the island of St. Patrick, I believe, or the monastery of St. Patrick. I'm not sure. I probably have this all wrong, but there's a monastery there, and you have to take a boat out to this island. And when you go there, you got to take your shoes off. You're not allowed to walk on the island with shoes on. And the boat leaves you there for 3 days, and you're in this monastery with the monks. But it's really it's a place where Saint Patrick is believed to have been shown by Jesus a portal to hell, and Saint Patrick built the monastery over this portal,
interesting.
keep the demons from coming into our world. And so it's a very, very religiously, spiritually charged location, and this person wants to send me there as a gift. So we'll see if that happens. So if anybody sounds like this is something you want to do, you anybody can go. But it's in Ireland, and I believe it's County Logue, or and there's a St. Patrick's I don't believe it's St. Patrick's Island, but it has something to do with St. Patrick, and someone will have to. She says Louth, Louth. Maybe just look up St. Patrick's something island or St. Patrick's Monastery and on a little island out in the middle of a loch somewhere in Ireland. It's beautiful. I've seen the pictures,
Yeah.
but well, we got 4 minutes left. How about our next guest? You haven't met them. You're gonna love them. Next Friday, May 9th, Barry and Connie Strome.
Nice. Lovely.
They are world renowned psychic channels. They've got several very popular radio shows of their own. He's an author. He's written, I don't know, I think he just wrote his 14th book. Um, very, that's going to be an excellent show. Um, since yesterday was National Day of Prayer and my prayer urn is full, maybe I should say a prayer. I got sent this beautiful prayer here by Saint Benedict. Since we're talking about the Benedictines, I'm going to light a candle for all of us. May the Holy Spirit enter and intervene in the lives of everybody that can see me and hear me and stay with you on the remainder of this journey and on to the next. And this candle will continue to burn for all of us till it burns out. This is for everybody searching for God. Written by St. Benedict, year unknown. Gracious and Holy Father, please give me intellect to understand you, reason to discern you, diligence to seek you, wisdom to find you, a spirit to know you, a heart to meditate upon you, ears to hear you, eyes to see you, a tongue to proclaim you, a way of life pleasing to you, patience to wait for you, and perseverance to look for you. Grant me a perfect end, your holy presence, a blessed resurrection, and life everlasting. Amen. And I offer that up to everybody who can see
Amen.
me and hear me. And I better kick you out of here before we run out of time. Anything you want to say to everybody before we go?
I'll just wish everybody a great night and a great weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Hopefully, you can join us for Carrie and Barry Strom.
Connie and Barry Strom. You're going to love them.
Connie and Barry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You have a great weekend. You're on the prayer list. I'll talk to you next Friday.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Annette Munich, owner of Stellium Books. I want to give a big shout out again to United Public Radio Network, UPRN, 107.7 FM New Orleans and 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast for picking up my show. Thank you to Michelle DeRoche for making that happen and Joe Montaldo. I love you all. Thank you all for tuning in because I don't have a show without all of you. You know that. Remember, we may have done what the devil said we did, but we are not who the devil says we are. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. I love you all. God bless you all in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Peace.